So good to see you again, Abraham.
Nice to be seen. They're
First
usually
time.
just a nebulous mist.
First time we met was 4 years ago on a cruise to Hawaii, which was two of the most magical weeks of my entire life. And a little over a year after that, my husband and I and our two daughters realized our dream of traveling full-time in our motorhome. And yesterday was the 3rd-year anniversary of having done that. We live a fabulous life. Everything comes to us. Everything is very comfortable and easy. And the one thing that I have always come to rely upon as far as asking and allowing these things to come to us is that there is always just enough. If there's something that I desire that is perhaps $500, a bill of a material object, something that I want to give or do for someone else, $501 will arrive. When we went to get our second motorhome, we said that we wanted something at about 40 to 42 feet. We got 42 and a half feet. And I have this feeling that it's so comfortable the way that we experience this allowing that I'm not, or maybe I'm not asking the questions the right way, or I'm not trying to receive the abundance that I could possibly be receiving, because again, there's always just enough to get by. There's never, you had mentioned earlier, an amplification.
Well, when you think about it, that Jerry and Esther have a mantra that things are always working out for me. Things are always working out for me. So no matter how it looks in any moment in time, things are always working out for me, because there's a bigger picture, there are bigger ideas, there are bigger things known even. There are things known by the source within me that are maybe not vibrationally active within me right now. In other words, things are always working out for me, whether I'm allowing it fully or not. But speaking to what you just said and what we were talking about earlier today, that if there is always just more than enough, let's put this in some really positive context. What if there was just barely more than enough air for me to breathe? And you say, but no, I should be breathing 4 or 5, I should be breathing 100 times this amount of air. And we would say, we don't think that your body really would go along with that. In the same way that we were talking about the vortex canal, the Panama Canal locks, and how there's really something to be said to be ready for where you're moving and ready for where you're moving. And you describe this sort of ease and flow, ease and flow. So what happens with people is sometimes ease and flow drifts into boredom, and then they ratchet things up, and then things drift into overwhelmment, and then they knock things back a little bit, and then things there's always this ebb and flow where you can move it faster by getting more specific, or you can move it a little slower by becoming less specific. In other words, you have control not only of where it's going, but about how fast it goes. We just want to point out to you that we don't think that there is as much off in your vibration as you are implying with your question, because of this understanding that we have that when you are vibrationally ready for where you are, at ease with what is, and your vortex is full of things beyond there, in that at easiness, the vortex will call you to your capacity and ability to receive it. Does that make sense to you? In other words, it's the difference between inspiration, which is the vortex calling you in because of your readiness, because the vortex is not going to drag you in. The vortex is not going to insist that you are in if you are not vibrationally ready. You follow that, don't you? Now, there are all kinds of people in a motivational attitude that stand outside the vortex. Everybody who's trying to motivate anybody, we promise you, is outside the vortex, trying to kick you into your vortex, maybe trying to motivate you in. But there's something so wonderful about understanding that your inner being and your vortex and law of attraction are all managing your experience so perfectly that always just more than enough is not a bad mantra. Because it means I'm ready. I'm not asking to receive what I'm not ready for. That's miserable. I'm not asking to receive what I'm not ready for. So now you might be saying, well, maybe I could goose up my readiness a little bit. And we say, well, that's another way of looking at it. You might want to become a little more definitive about what you want, or pay a little more attention to how you feel, chill a little more often, catch things more in the early subtle stages. You could manage everyone could. You could manage your emotional balance better. You could, but we don't find you vibrationally out of whack. And we think that the conversation that we're having here really adds to the larger conversation that we want to make. And so we're just going to do it one more time here, that you were source energy before you came into this body. A part of you came into this body, but the larger part of you remains as non-physical energy. As you have been living in this life and asking and asking and asking and building this vortex into this really magnificent, pregnant with all kinds of wonderful, abundant experiences and life experiences, this vortex is calling you and wants you to join, because as you become one with it, the exaltation of life comes into full view. In other words, that's what that living in the now really is, being fully who I really am. But, and this is we haven't talked about this with this kind of clarity before. This is the piece that we really want you to get. You don't want your vortex that is so full of everything you want to drag you in before you're ready. You don't want that. What you want is to be ready. What you want is to be ready. Are you with us on this? In other words, you want the ease of just moving in. Just moving in. When you process this, when you accept the vibrational nature of this, and we're just going to do this even though we know we're at the end of the hour. We'll do this quickly. So, out of the vortex and feeling negative, the more specific you are, the more negative you feel. So the perfect process is specifically negative, less specifically negative, less specifically negative, less specifically negative, really generally negative, really generally positive, more specifically positive, more specifically positive, more specifically positive, more specifically positive. You get the sense of this. So you don't want to jump from really negative to really positive, nor can you. The law of attraction will not allow it. When you yearn for something different than you've got, you automatically are getting more specifically negative. You see what we're getting at? You automatically, every time you acknowledge that you're not where you want to be, even if it's soft in the way that you offered it, you get more specifically negative, which causes more of that current, which pulls against you, which ultimately results in what negative emotion is, and then finally in what the breakdown of your physical body is. And so if you accept that you're just incrementally moving and complimenting yourself about where you are, that's the very best stance to be in. The very best stance. Vibrationally speaking. So what conclusion did we come to here? The vortex cannot take you in if you are a different vibrational frequency. What happens when you try to force your frequency? It backlashes. So what is the logical result? What should I do? If I'm not up to speed with my vortex, and my vortex won't take me in until I am up to speed, and trying too hard only makes it worse, what's the answer? Let go. Stop trying. Accept the perfection with where you are. Start looking at your 10 favorite things about where you stand, you see. Mm-hmm. And that's what we heard from you. You talked about your wonderful life. You talked about what you're doing. You talked about how it's incrementally expanding. It's wonderful. Good time for a segment of refreshment.